and welcome to MorningFile. I'm your host, Emma McCarty, and today I am joined with Isaac Mule, the artistic director of Page One Theatre and the playwright for Mr. Wonderful, coming to Hamilton Fringe in July. So for those who don't know, maybe do you want to just give a bit of a background on what Hamilton Fringe is?
Of course, yeah. So the Hamilton Fringe, the Fringe festivals are all over the world. They operate through a lottery system. So basically anyone can apply to get in, and they usually have different categories. So in a traditional year, there's 90 minutes, there's 60 minutes. So it's a really great opportunity because independent artists who sometimes it can be a struggle to get your work seen. So it's a really great opportunity because a lot of the festivals they're established. They have an established audience. So if you win a lottery spot, then it's a really great opportunity to share your work with a wider audience.
Yeah. So you are the playwright for Mr. Wonderful. What is Mr. Wonderful about?
Mr. Wonderful is a one-person show about a cis gay man who has recently moved. He's begun unpacking everything, and he's invited an acquaintance over to help him. At least that's what we think. The person is there to assist with unpacking. But really, man, he needs help. And so what happens is a conversation about mental health unfolds. It's about looking back on his life and trying to understand his relationships, his friendships, kind of what brought him to this place that he felt he needed to move and where he is. And it's also about his dog, Sheldon, who AKA is Mr. Wonderful.
Yeah, so obviously mental health and that type of thing is a pretty deep topic. Where was your inspiration from to create this play?
The show is a sort of semi-autobiographical story about my own journey with mental health and my own dog, Sheldon. But I've worked as a child and youth worker with adults with disabilities as well. So I've seen sort of from that perspective the stigma attached to mental health, to talking about it, accessing resources. And so over the years, as I've sort of learned more about myself, as I've found out what living with a diagnosis means in my own health, I just sort of, the story slowly started to click in my mind. And then it kind of just got to that point of, do I share this? And how do I share this? And how do I go about doing that? And as a queer artist and working with other queer artists, representation is very difficult to come by. And sometimes our stories are not always represented equally, or the representation is not always what we're looking for. I can't think of the word I'm looking for right now myself. And so as I was going on that journey, as I was finding that information, as I was reading books, and, it wasn't exactly, as you'll find watching the show, the language around it is not exactly the most positive. And I just felt that maybe this could help somebody. Maybe this could be an opportunity for someone to hear about an experience or hear about something that is not often talked about, and being able to relate to it and being able to say, I can see myself in that in some way, and just trying to break down the stigma, and just trying to, help other people be seen who maybe don't have the opportunities or the strength or skills right now to maybe talk about their own experience.
Yeah, that's awesome. So you mentioned breaking the stigma, having somebody relate. What would you say is maybe you're hoping is the number one takeaway that somebody sees the show and they walk out thinking, this is what I thought?
Yeah, I hope that maybe like neurodiverse people are going to be able to see themselves represented in the story. We did a reading in February with some artists, and there were folks that had friends or family who have similar challenges, and they really felt that they could see themselves in that character, which for me was like extremely humbling. Like, not only did I feel like creatively the story worked, but to have people say, I saw my friend, I saw my relative in that story, and they use those words, they use that language, was incredibly humbling for me. And I think that's what I'm looking for is that folks who don't see their story on stage are going to be able to say, there's a piece of me, or just have that moment. And for people who don't know enough about mental health, or who maybe don't experience challenges in the same way, maybe they'll be able to learn something and take that with them and kind of think a little bit differently about how they interact with people day to day, or how when they hear stories about people looking for resources or something, that maybe just starts that ball turning a little bit differently when we have conversations about mental health.
Yeah, I think that's kind of all you can hope for as a writer, is that people connect to your story. Yeah. So you mentioned a little while ago that it's actually a one-man show. Yes. What is that process like? How do you go about writing and creating something like that?
Challenging. It's very different because, and especially online as well, because a lot of the time it is just one person that's carrying everything in the show, the momentum, the drive of that scene. And so in a typical show, if you have other characters, the main character can bounce off of lines and dialogue and scenes from other people, and they're not always that driving force. So this is really just one person that's like carrying the whole thing. And so there's a balancing act of, am I writing too much? How can I find ways of sharing that information so it's not necessarily a very long TED talk? So finding that balance of how else can I present this information? How can I find other opportunities for something else to support that person? So is there a lighting change? Is there a sound cue that will create that shift that will allow that person to then we're transitioning into a new scene, so then they can carry the audience with them through that transition. So it's challenging because it really is just on that one person, but it's finding those. That's what I found when I was doing it, was trying to find those ways to kind of support them through either what's on stage or some of the technical elements of the show.
Yeah. So in saying that, you also have had to adapt to it being digital. I know it's not a typical year, and the show will be airing digitally through Hamilton Fringe. So what kind of challenges were you met with that?
Yes, it's definitely challenging because this is a new piece, and so I've actually not yet been able to work in a room with an actor or a creative team. So there's those challenges in terms of even communicating notes, even trying to get a beat for where the actor is at in that scene, getting a feel for the people in the room. Are they responding? So there's some challenges there. In terms of creativity as well, because we were fortunate because we filmed it in an apartment, and we were able to kind of move around, and Evelyn Long, who is our director, did a really good job of trying to keep some of those theatrical pieces of it. So we identified early on a couple of scenes that we wanted to maintain the theatricality of it, and they did a really good job, I found, of directing Alistair and making sure the show kept some of those pieces. But it's definitely challenging because the center piece of it is there's a lot of boxes that I want to use, and I've envisioned having all these boxes on stage, and we haven't been able to get there yet. And it's such a critical piece of the show. And so it's figuring out how else can we use boxes and use stuff in the apartment. How can we use lighting, or, will the audience be pulled out if we add in a sound cue? So it's definitely trying not to make it film. But film theater is kind of the language we've been using. So it's definitely a new challenge, but I think it worked really well, to be honest.
Yeah. And hopefully the show can come to the stage, sooner rather than later.
Yes, that would be nice.
Yeah. So then I guess my last question for you is, where can people go to learn more about Mr. Wonderful and see the show?
Yes, so you can go to the Hamilton Fringe. There's some information there, but you can also go to our website, pg1-theater.com. All the bios of the performers are there, as well as just a bit more in-depth information about the show, kind of our process and some pictures and things like that, as well as ticket links as well.
That was Isaac Mule discussing his play, Mr. Wonderful, which will be coming to Hamilton Fringe in July 2021. To learn more about Mr. Wonderful or to check out Hamilton Fringe, you can click the links below. As always, for more MorningFile content or just exciting new videos, you can visit cfmu.ca/videos, and make sure to like and subscribe so you never miss new content.